that takes me to the reason as to why the ministry, together with other stakeholders, came up with the Traffic and Road Safety Prescription of Speed Limits Regulations of 2024. It is against the background of those statistics that I've shared. The aim was to improve driver behavior among road users and to develop a safety culture which protects the most vulnerable road users, especially the pedestrians and passengers that do not have control of the vehicle. The key provisions in these regulations is the prescribed speed limits for the different categories of roads. There was a breakdown of the speed limit requirements depending on the type of motor vehicle you're using and the type of road that you're using. And the 30 kilometer per hour limit was reached out for traffic movement in areas of human traffic. The reason why the 30 kilometer per hour speed limit was arrived at is that we are having a high number of both human and vehicle interaction in mostly built up areas in the cities, along the roads, especially urban areas. And we had to come up with a way of regulating that interaction by lowering the speed limit to 30. Under the same regulations in Schedule 2, it provides for the different speed limit in urban areas, trading centers, and other built-up areas for different types of vehicles. For example, along the expressway, the maximum speed limit is 100 kilometers per hour, but that excludes what we call engineering plants and heavy goods vehicles. Engineering plants include vehicles like cranes, excavators, because you cannot have them move at 100 kilometers per hour. Their reaction time is narrowed and we shall register a fatality. So there was that kind of separation or demarcation depending on the type of vehicle you're using and the area. For urban areas, for highways traversing urban areas, let me use an example of the road I'm more familiar with, Masaka Road. Let's say at Lyantonde, because it is a highway traversing an urban area. The speed limit there is 50 kilometers per hour. In areas where there are schools, the school zones, churches, markets, it is 30 kilometers per hour. Then we have community access roads. Let's say, for example, if you have a main road and then you have a road that goes off the main road, maybe to churches, to homes, it is 30 kilometers per hour. Then in Schedule 3, we also have the maximum speed limit for roads in rural areas. We have seen also a high number of vehicle interaction in rural areas. We have a lot of borders. People are also been able to buy motor vehicles, and still that interaction with the other road users is also regulated under the speed limit regulations. Maybe I'll share them with you later. The same regulation also creates offenses for exceeding driving above the prescribed speed limits. If you drive above the prescribed speed limits by 1 kilometer to 30 kilometers per hour, for instance, if you're driving in an area that has a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour and you're driving at 52, the penalty is 200,000. If you're driving at 50, let's say 58, still it is 200,000. But when you exceed the prescribed speed limit by 30 kilometers per hour and more, the penalty is 600,000. So if you're driving at 80 kilometers per hour in an area whose speed is 50 kilometers per hour, you'll be penalized by a ticket of 600,000. Now that takes us to the express penalty scheme regulations of 2024, where it also it lays out the time frame within which to pay that ticket. So if you previously before the amendment, a driver was given 28 days to pay the fine, but in the new regulations, a driver is given 72 hours, a driver or the owner of the motor vehicle, because the notification goes to the registered owner of the motor vehicle. You get a notification via SMS and email. The details you used when you're purchasing, and that previously it was under Ministry of, Uganda Revenue Authority, but now it is under Ministry of Works, so they have all those details. So if you sold the vehicle and you did not effect a transfer, the notification will come to you, because in the records it reflects that you're still the owner. So so previously it was to be paid in 28 days, but now the payment has to be done before 72 hours elapse. So if the 72 hours elapse, what happens? A 50% surcharge is added on to the penalty. So if you have a penalty ticket of 600,000, so you add 300,000 to make it 900,000. And for every violation that is committed with the different cameras we have in the city and in other areas that are covering the country, for every violation it comes with a different penalty. So if you're going to move from here to, say, Ginger, and you are, for each camera that is on that road is getting you driving above the prescribed speed limit, it will be a different ticket. So you can accumulate tickets, penalty tickets, even of about 2 million in just a single journey. That is basically for the two regulations that have been have attracted attention in the media, and probably rightly so, because we make the laws for the people, and when people protest, we are obliged to listen. And as of last night, these two regulations, especially the EPS regulation, was suspended pending review of some of the issues that were raised. And we are still waiting for communication from the Minister of Works and Transport. I was also asked to briefly talk about the recent amendments, where we have the Traffic and Road Safety Wearing of Seatbelt Regulations of 2023. It requires a driver of a motor vehicle to ensure that a child who is below 5 years of age is seated in the back seat of the vehicle. Yes, I'm also a mother, and we have a tendency where we have those baby seats. You put them in the co-driver's seat with the baby facing the seat, and then you strap the baby. It is very dangerous. We have registered incidents where those babies actually fly out of those vehicles when there's a collision. So the law now requires that a child below 5 years of age is seated in the back seat, and you're supposed to use appropriate child restraints suitable for that child. The driver is also further required to ensure that a child who is above 5 years of age but below 12 years of age sits in the back seat of a motor vehicle and is also strapped with a seat belt. It is an offense if you contravene that provision, where you're liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 30 currency points, or imprisonment, or both. Then we have the Traffic and Road Safety Motorcycles and Motorized Tricycles Amendment Regulation. It requires that in addition to wearing a safety helmet, it is supposed to be fastened. We've been having registering incidents where most people use the motorcycles. They just place the helmet on the head when they see traffic officers in the vicinity. So what happens when a collision happens? The helmet flies off, then there's that direct impact of the head and the tarmac or the ground, and then someone ends up dying, yet could have been protected. So in addition to wearing, placing it on the head, you're supposed to fasten it under the new regulations. Then we have the traffic and road safety post-crash emergency care regulations. These were mainly put in place to protect the first responders. There used to be instances where first responders would rush to a scene of a crash, and when they would get there, somehow things would be twisted, and then they are accused of knowing what could have happened or participated in what actually happened. So these regulations protect first responders. Then we have the traffic and road safety demerit point system regulations of 2023. Under these regulations, where a driver is convicted and there's an order from court that a certain number of points be deducted from the driving license, they will be deducted under the demerit point system. Then we have the traffic and road safety digital network regulations, the one that regulates transporters like Uber, and then I've heard of Faras. It regulates their work in this country. Then we have the traffic and road safety prescribed alcohol limit regulations still of 2023. Thank you very much.